Hi everyone, Jessica Morrison here, realtor with Ferris Property Group based out of Indianapolis, Indiana. We are back for another small business highlight with Keisha Pizzo and Little Bite Confections. Keisha, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much.
I say show and I've done like 5 of these. So
That's a show. That's a show.
all right. So for those who are brand new to you, who are you and what is your business?
Well, I own Lil Bites Confections, and we're a full service bakery. I pretty much do everything from custom cakes to breads, pies, cookies, all kinds of desserts, dessert tables. You name it, there's probably not too much that I don't or can't do. Um, I started the business 4 years ago. I was a financial consultant for 25 years. So this is a hobby turned business after I decided to leave the financial world. And we moved here 2 years ago from Pennsylvania. So we've only been in the Indianapolis, Zionsville area for 2 years. And I have to say, this area is just remarkable with supporting small business. I mean, I hesitated when my husband said we were moving and I was going to have to start my business over again. And my parents live in Lebanon. So my mom was like, "You're not going to have any problems." And I'm like, "Mom, this is like a starting all over with a whole new set of clientele and people." And she's like, "I promise you, you will not have a problem." And in the 2 years that we've been here, I've probably grown my business about 500%. It's incredible. I mean, this area is incredible. So super happy, and I love all my customers, my clients. I do a lot for Mountain House. I'm not, are you familiar with a Mountain House? Okay. Yeah, I do a lot for them. And anything that I can do to support the community, I'm super happy to do so.
I love it. Yeah. And for those not familiar, I mean, anytime you go on a Facebook chatter page and somebody asks about who do I go to for baking, like Keisha's name is always in like the top 3 of what pops up, which is super
Yep,
fun to watch. But I love that you're affiliated with So Big Mountain House because they have a wonderful mission.
they
Um,
do. Yep.
and I'm gonna hopefully launch a nonprofit series highlight
Oh,
as well. So
okay.
I have to add them to that list because they do
Yeah,
so much.
they do incredible work. It's actually, one of my customers had contacted me to do a cake for them, for a mama that was having a baby for a baby shower. And then I started to get a little bit more involved on my own. And now they pretty much solely use me. So it's such a great organization, and I'm more than happy to do anything for any sweet little mama.
Sorry, I'm playing with the mute button and it's in a battle with anyway. So, speaking of sweet things, I feel like some bakers don't always do all sorts of, or like the full gamut. And I know you alluded to doing everything earlier. But let's say I'm throwing a birthday party. What types of things are you able to do, both from product wise, but also maybe ingredients wise? And then is there anything that maybe you prefer not to do or have a referral from the perspective of outsourcing?
Okay, that's a great question. I can do gluten-free, sugar-free, dairy-free, egg-free. I have a ton of customers that have allergies or food sensitivities, or just for, vegan. I do a lot of vegan stuff. Um, Not my favorite to do because I just feel like, you know, straight butter and sugar is the best way to go. But I have a lot of return customers that do those food sensitivity type desserts and stuff. So they must be good. I don't usually. That's the thing. I don't usually get a chance to eat my own stuff because it's a cake, you can't cut into a cake and taste it. So I don't get a chance to really taste a lot of my vegan and eggless, dairy-free kind of stuff, but people keep coming back, so it must it must be okay. Um, the one I would have to say the one thing that I have not perfected and I don't like to do are French macarons. They are so hard. They are, and every time I take an order on, I stress about it. My husband's like, why are you taking this on? So sometimes I do outsource that if somebody's real insistent on having something like that to go along with maybe their dessert table or something. I will do them. I don't like to do them because you never know how they're going to turn out. It's not, they're so fussy and they're so picky. Um, the temperature of your house has to be right. It can't be a humid day. I mean, it's just like all kinds of crazy things for them to be perfect. So I will sometimes, try to find somebody that does them regularly and has really mastered that perfection. But definitely not my favorite thing to do. But if you were going to have a party and you wanted like a dessert table, with all kinds of different little things, I do all kinds of minis, little dessert cups to mini pies to petit fours. I mean, that's really how my business started was by doing. I swore I would never do cakes. That I didn't want to do the custom cake route. That's all I do now, pretty much. But it started out being little bite-sized treats. And that's how the business started. And then it just kind of evolved and developed. And now pretty much my primary thing I do is pretty much custom cakes. But I really love dessert tables. I love them. I love to do little mini desserts. It's probably one of my most favorite things to do.
I think just talking about it just sounds adorable. I mean,
It's fun. I really like it.
little bite size, so it's guilt-free for the
Yep.
most part. My husband likes to say that broken cookies have no calories.
You don't have to count those on your MyFitnessPal. That's right.
That was actually true. Yeah, and so my health journey has been such a freaking roller coaster. But having dealt with allergies, non-anaphylactic, gratefully, but over the course of my life and in recent years, they've just gotten worse, so to
Mhm,
speak. I find it so surprising that a lot of times, like if I go to a restaurant, like I'll find one thing that's gluten free, or
mhm,
um, like usually there will be something that's like one allergy friendly
right.
product. But have you found, and this is more so a side tangent, have you found that people who approach you for creating desserts have multiple allergies rather than just one?
I have some customers that are like that have, they need it to be dairy free, egg free. I have to say I had one really challenging cake I had to make last year where I really didn't know how this cake was going to turn out. I really had no clue. It was a lady in where was she at? Noblesville or Fishers? I mean, she came far to pick this cake up. And it was for a 1 year old, which I didn't even know how you find out that a 1 year old has all these things. It had to be dairy free, gluten free, sugar free, um, egg free, soy free, nut free. It couldn't be any. Yeah, it was super hard. And I'm like, I have to use some kind of liquid in this cake. I had to have a liquid and didn't even know about oat milk until then. And so I was able to use oat milk. Had never used a dairy-free butter before. Had no idea how this cake was going to turn out. I just it was it was difficult, but she texted me and said it was awesome, and I hope that that's what I hope she meant it and she just wasn't telling me that. But I do have a couple people that have a few, maybe not all of those. I mean, this poor lady, her baby had everything. And I even asked her when she came, I'm like, how'd you find this out? Because babies aren't even really eating solid foods at 1 years old, not too much. And she had an interesting story. She did not have, I guess, a medical physician. She had more of like a holistic pediatrician that ran tests on the baby when the baby was born. And the baby didn't have all of these, necessarily have all these things. It maybe had a predisposition to possibly have these down the road, these things. So I think she was just playing it super, super safe, which is totally fine with me. I was just that she got vanilla and the cake was kind of gray just because of that oat milk is not white, it's kind of a funky color. I was super worried about it, but she came back to me this year too, so I guess it was okay. But I do find that some people have multiple allergies or food sensitivities, and it's not just somebody that's gluten free.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I'm honestly not surprised to hear that list because usually it's um,
Multiple things, yeah.
gluten, dairy, egg, soy, which is where I fall into.
Mhm.
And you get used to it enough that it's funny hearing you mention the alternatives because I'm like, yep, that's life. But also, hearing the other side of it where like I have no judgment against the other ingredients. I wish that I could eat straight butter because it's really good or, properly made butter is really good for you. But um, all of that to say, no, it is nice to know for those watching that you are able to serve those alternative because for someone like me, being able to find those go-to people
Mhm.
can be very, very difficult. And if it's not marketed, like, hey, I can do these things, then you just kind of learn to assume that it's not an option. So
Right.
I love that you're able to be flexible around that. I know it brings its own challenges. I have yet to find a
But
good
that's
brownie recipe because when a lot of times if you are doing alternative baking, gluten-free flour hardly works well with an egg replacement.
right. Yeah,
So
you're exactly right. I tried to make for one of my customers, she wanted gluten-free cinnamon rolls. And
mhm.
I'm like, okay, I can do that. I'll just it huge fail, huge fail. Um, it did not come together as a dough. And I'm like, this is not right. this cannot this cannot be right. Yeah, it's very difficult. I mean, you really have to, do some research or trial and error. And it definitely that first time that I made them was an epic fail. I called her and I was like, this is not going to work. I'm sorry. This is more like sand.
Yeah, the
So
brownies
it's
that
hard.
I've tried to make different recipes, and usually it's a boxed one because it's a little bit more convenient.
Mhm.
But yeah, every single time it's come out like fried jello, and I've tried playing around with the temperature and it's just not having it.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, props to you for having the patience to figure it out. Although sometimes I feel like good chefs almost have the equivalent of a chemistry degree, which I'm saying very much in a joke, but so much of baking is chemistry.
It and it's precision too. It's not like cooking where you can just, throw in a little of this, throw in a little bit of that. It definitely I mean, you can do that with things like adding coconut or pecans or something like that. That doesn't have to be so precise, but in baking, your flour, your egg, your milk, your baking soda, baking powder, that kind of stuff, your leavening agents, that has to be precise because if not, you just don't know how it's gonna. It's not like just throwing in a dash here and there. So it's difficult sometimes to come up with or find some of those different alternatives, like you said, like an egg replacement and stuff like that. Because sometimes it works in some things and it doesn't work in I mean, it'll work in a cake. It might not work in brownies, totally different texture. So it's hard. It definitely I feel for people that can't just call me up and say, hey, make me, whatever you want to make me. So I have to give you guys a lot of credit for, not being able to eat some things that you really, really want to.
Yeah, gratefully, just in the last 2 to 3 years, the alternative product line, like what you see at Kroger or even online with food bloggers, like there has been such a wave of like recipes and alternative, like because a lot of people are in the same boat, so they're sharing the
Right.
journey. And
Yeah.
so if you can find those one or two good recipes, it definitely makes cheating, so to speak, or feeling like you're cheating a lot easier with
Right.
something like that. But yes, I wish I could eat everything under the sun as my heart desires, but there's not a good consequence they usually follow.
It comes afterwards. Yeah.
So kind of bringing this back to your specific business, um, is there anything that you've found that you absolutely love to make all the time? I think you said cakes. Is that correct?
I do. And I like to make pies a lot. My grandmother was an absolute outstanding pie maker. For years, we kept trying to get her to open up a business, and they scared me for a long time. I wouldn't make a pie because I knew that there was no way I was going to be able to compare to my grandma's, and that was even before I started doing this for a living. And the more I've gotten into it, the more I kind of enjoy it. And I feel like I have her rolling pin that she passed away like like 14 years ago, but I inherited her rolling pin, and I don't use it very often because I'm afraid, I don't want anything to happen to it. But when I do, I kind of feel like she'd be proud. I finally, I finally got a pie crust the way that she did. I really like to create. So I really like it when my customers don't have anything specific in mind, which I occasionally will have somebody. I had one this weekend when they just say, you know what, I just want a birthday cake for myself and you can do whatever you want. And then I can just kind of creatively do something that I like to do. Because like the little girls mermaid cakes and unicorn cakes get kind of old sometimes. So I like to do something creative, and when people kind of give me that freedom.
Yeah, I think I saw that. Was that the Sleeping Beauty cake?
Oh my gosh, that was the hardest cake I have ever done. And it's so funny because when they came to pick it up, the girl that was driving my customer, she's also my customer too. And she's like, Keisha, did you have fun? And I went, I would not call that cake fun. It was not fun. I did not have fun with that cake. It was stressful. The one that looked like a flower petals. I don't know if you saw that. It had flower petals on it. That's the one that I kind of just, she said, do whatever you want. I was able to do whatever flavor I wanted, which so many people are just chocolate and vanilla or Oreo, so I got to play around with flavors a little bit with that one. And then just kind of do something that I had seen and wanted to try myself. But yeah, that Sleeping Beauty cake, I didn't sleep for 2 days, just contemplating how I was going to do that and how I was going to, and they came to pick it up, how they were going to drive that thing home. That was huge. That cake was enormous. It was so heavy, my husband had to go buy a piece of plywood that I wrapped like with like florist foil or paper or whatever for us to carry that cake. It was so heavy. I felt like we were on an episode of Cake Wars, when they moved the cake to the table, but we had to carry it out to the car. The whole way my customer drove home, I was praying, please don't let anything happen to that cake. Please let that cake arrive. Okay. And when she got to her house, she texted me after they moved it out of the car and onto a table. She texted me and said it made it. I was like, whew, I'm done, but yeah, that was one of the hardest cakes I've ever, it was definitely the biggest and most stressful that I've ever done. So not
Yeah,
my favorite.
especially the handoff because you can't control it. So not
And
only
I
are you
And I
dedicated
kind of have an issue with that. Like I'm a little bit like I like to have total control. I want to. So my husband asked me, he goes, "Do you want to deliver this?" And I went, "No, I don't, I don't want to like I didn't want to be responsible for driving it and transporting it. but it worried me the whole time it was in transport. And
Mhm.
it was, so 2 nights I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about how I was gonna do this. I'm just glad I needed a drink after that. It was a rough one.
But hey, it turned out, and I'm
It
sure
did,
you learned a lot from being challenged by it. I mean,
yeah.
it's fascinating having done, and this is by no means a comparison to what you do, but having done cake decorating in 4-H growing up,
Mm,
you kind of learn some of the behind the scenes stuff of what cake decorators do. And yes, that was one of the suggestions was, having a board that you can carry the cake on, because the traditional baking sheets or however you're planning to transport it is probably going to be way too light and flimsy. But the floral, what did you call that?
It's like, florist paper, or it's what they sometimes will wrap a bouquet of flowers in. It's kinda like a foil, but a lot of times it's got, like, a little print on it, or, it's a little bit, it's not like aluminum foil. I had to stick that bad boy on the floor and wrap that and tape it up almost like a present, and then flip it over and set that cake on there because it was just so incredibly heavy. I don't even know how we got it. I don't even know. I'm just glad that it made it.
We'll just call it God's grace and leave it at that.
That's great. Yep.
Okay, so you can do anything. You would prefer not to do French macaroons if you could help it, but you'll take orders for that on rare occasions. And
Rare.
then you have,
Yeah.
let's say that someone is really wanting like a French themed tea party. Do you have a referral for somebody who does those?
That does the French macarons? Yeah, Angie Haug is a really good friend of mine. You've probably seen her. She's one of the other top 3 that you said's listed on Zionsville Moms. Angie will do them, and sometimes I refer her to them, or sometimes I'll call, Sweet Pages, in Brownsburg, and I'll order some from there, and I usually take care of that. I don't, have my customers do that. I'll find somebody that'll do them if I don't have the time or don't feel like, I can get what they need done. I usually take care of that. But Sweet Paige, she usually has an assortment usually already made up in her shop. Um, and then Angie, if I need some backup, Angie's always there for me.
That's awesome. So, guys, we've got you covered on the French
Yep. Yep.
macaroons. I always get macarons and macaroons mixed up, but I think I've learned which one's which. So let's transition into how can we help support your business moving forward locally? Do you have a preference with events? Like, what is your preferred type of customer?
Um, I'd say I love referrals. I love it when I do a cake for somebody and then I get a text or an email or a Facebook message or something that says, "Oh, you just did a cake for my neighbor, so and so, and they referred me to you." I love referrals. But I worked in a business before where our business was based on referrals. I mean, I worked, as a consultant for a really long time, and so, that's how we built our business at Wells Fargo Advisors, as well as, what I'm doing now. So I love referrals. I love people that are open, and open to suggestions. You know, if I don't think I can do a cake for whatever reason, either it's the size or the design, I don't do a lot of fondant work. I don't cover cakes in fondant, primarily because it's gross. It just doesn't taste good, and everybody peels it off. But it's super expensive for customers. So if I have to charge somebody $3 per serving for a normal cake, let's just say that that's kind of average. On a fondant cake, I need to charge them about 6 to 6.50 a serving, and they peel that stuff off. And so I'm real upfront with people. I'm like, listen, I mean, if you want a fondant covered cake, I'll do it, but it's gonna more than double, the price of whatever your cake is. So I work with a lot of fondant accents. I'll do accents for cakes, or fit, I'll make little figures or whatever, but I don't really like to cover one in there. So as long as, people are kind of open to suggestions, you know, people sometimes, and I haven't found this a whole lot here, but sometimes people have really big grand ideas for cakes, and then when we start discussing it, either they realize what those cakes might cost, or that there are certain things that maybe in the time frame I'm given I just can't do. If it's something that's got a special cake topper or something that needs to be, handmade, and they're looking for something in 2 or 3 days, it's probably not going to happen, you know. So as long as people are kind of open to suggestions, and, letting me kind of guide them if I don't think that it's really going to work out, and those are the kind of customers that I like.
That makes a lot of sense. So I think having the background on your process is probably helpful because I'm probably not the only person who's guilty of deciding they want to throw a party on a Thursday and having it on a Monday.
Yeah.
I mean, ideally, you give yourself 4 to 6 weeks to plan and, all of that. But um, let's say that somebody is interested in ordering from you. What is your preferred notice? How much time do you need to prep? And what does a quote rush order look like?
Okay, so I typically, and I think some of the other local girls that do, Angie, Janika Fischero from 513 Bakery, she's another one. We pretty much all, I think, book out 3 to 4 weeks in advance. Um, I I never turn down a current customer. I don't care if I have to bake at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, because I don't want my customer to then have to try to search for somebody else. So I'm really, I mean, unless I am totally incapable, if there's just not enough hours in the day, I usually don't turn too many people away. So I would say at least a 2 week notice. Two weeks is usually good, but there are weekends, especially if I've got a wedding or it's graduation weekend, or something like that, where people have booked out sometimes months in advance. I mean, that's kind of rare. Like the month of June, every single weekend was completely crazy booked for weeks and weeks and weeks in advance, because everybody was graduating, and it's a big wedding weekend. So I would say usually about a 2 week notice. Um, if I'm booked on a Saturday, I might ask my customer if it's okay if they pick up on Friday night, instead of, if they're having a party on Saturday, and maybe I'm just totally booked on Saturday with, and I just can't, there's not a time slot for somebody to come and pick up, because I really try to be socially distant, so that I don't have a bunch of customers coming all at the same time. I still try to be, mindful of that kind of stuff, and kind of try to space my pickups at least 30 minutes, in 30-minute increments. I may ask somebody to, if they don't mind picking up, on a Friday night, or, whatever. And for the most part, people don't have a problem with that. That's usually, that's okay with them.
Yeah, I think being able to, um, especially, are you working out of your house or out of a dedicated?
Yeah,
Okay,
no, I'm out of my house. Yeah.
so
When
go
when
ahead.
COVID hit, so Angie and I, we were actually looking for a storefront to open up together. Like we would like to open up a business together. And 2 days before the whole world shut down, we were in talks with somebody down in the village, and it just was kind of slow going, and things weren't just going just right. And all of a sudden COVID hit, and we both were just like, man, this, like, that could have been really bad,
and I just kind of felt like somebody was watching over us and telling us, you know what, guys, it's not time yet. And so we kind of both have, I mean, it gets to be a lot at home, especially when you have a family and, people are in the kitchen trying to get snacks and lunch or dinner or whatever, and the place has just got cake stuff everywhere. So it gets a little overwhelming. But I am doing it out of the house. So I really try to kind of schedule my people so that I don't have too big of an too many people here at the same time.
Well, I'm thinking about just my own experience with having made a three-tiered cake recently. And if you're going to work on it over multiple days, you need to be able to refrigerate it and hopefully keep it as fresh as possible. Because if, especially from your perspective, you probably have multiple cakes going on to where maybe you need time to let it set and let the icing do its thing. And I, I wish I could hear your brain right now, having me try to walk through the baking steps, but there's just probably so many layers to the process of what goes into making something look as good as what you do, to where having the storage space for you probably gets really tricky. Would you say that that's true?
Yeah, I have a separate refrigerator out in my garage, that is just mine. It's just my baking. Every once in a while, I'll find some drinks out there. One of the kids will put drinks out there, and that's fine. But it's pretty much reserved for my stuff, because I need the space. And then my dining room most weekends is just full. It's just cake, 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 cake. They're just lined up. I usually try to put them on cake stands for my customers to come in and see them. I kind of showcase them. I never box them before somebody has seen them. So then my customer comes in, I'll tell them, because sometimes there'll be 4, 5, 6 cakes on my table at the same time. They'll see their cake. I'll box them up, and then they're on their way. But if anybody ever peeked around the corner and looked at my kitchen and saw the frosting that's on the floor, half of the time, my husband's like, "Oh my gosh," but it's it's good. I'm happy doing what I'm doing, and I'm okay with it still being at my house. And at some point, Angie and I'll get around to trying to find some real estate and opening up a shop. And I love the fact that I can get up at 4:30 in the morning and be in my pajamas and bake. I don't have to get up and go to a shop and get dressed. So that's a definite perk.
For sure. Plus, you're saving so much overhead
Yeah.
by not having to have a commercial space, and there's definitely pros and cons all around
Oh
that.
yeah, definitely.
Um, how many orders are you able to handle at one time?
Let's see, I did 9 on Saturday. I have done as much as 13 in one day, 13 custom cake orders. Now, Christmas time is is beyond anything I can even, it gives me anxiety even thinking about it now. It's just crazy. So a lot of times at Christmas, I do a lot of homemade cinnamon rolls at Christmas, because people like to pick them up and then bake them for Christmas morning. And then I do custom cookie kits. So the cookie kits are usually like a dozen Christmas. I usually do them at Christmas, Valentine's Day. Sometimes I'll do them at St. Patty's, just kind of depends on what's going on. I don't do them all the time, but I'll take orders for those. And my husband, I have to say, so he complains a lot, but he's a blessing. I mean, he helps me a lot when when holidays come, because holidays are crazy. But I'll do cookie kits where they'll have a dozen sugar cookies and then 3 different colors of frosting, some sprinkles, and then I wrap them up real pretty and put a bow on them. And what I usually do when I have those holiday huge things go on, I usually end up taking orders and setting out a table in my driveway. And I have everything, because it's crazy. I might have 50 people in a day come, and I'll have it set outside. Everybody's got their name written on their order. They can just grab and go. I'll give them a time frame. I'll say, okay, from 4 to 6, I'll have your orders outside. I don't do it in the summertime for obvious reasons. It's too hot, but, and then they can come, and as long as they've prepaid me by, Venmo or something like that, they can just swing by my house right in the driveway. There's their orders, and they can just take them and go. So I would say custom cake wise, I'm good for probably, without going too crazy, probably 9 or 10 on a Saturday, on a Friday and a Saturday. It gets a little crazy, but it's okay. I love it.
And how many days does it take you from, let's say you've got an order in the queue, when do you typically start baking and when is it ready for pickup?
Okay. I prefer to bake the day of somebody's order. I mean, I think I'm kind of known for my freshness of things, but if it's a lot of the earliest I'll bake a cake would be the night before. I may, if I've only got 1 or 2 cakes, say today I've only got 1 or 2 cakes, I'm baking them this morning, putting them in the fridge, letting them cool, and then getting them ready for pickup whenever. But if it's on a weekend, I normally bake the cakes. So if I've got pickups on Friday night or Friday, I'll bake them Thursday night. And then if I've got pickups on Saturday, after all my cakes are done on Friday, I'll bake Friday night for Saturday. So people can pretty much know that there is no more than about 18 hours that their cakes has since it's been baked.
That's incredible. I mean, I think you've probably got a system down too to
Yeah.
really streamline that process. I feel like maybe I'm just out of practice with baking in the sense of, I feel like it tends to take forever, or from your prep time to clean up and everything in
Oh
between.
my gosh, yeah.
If you're doing multiple, then you can, again, streamline it to where it is super efficient, and you've got the refrigerator space too to help too.
Yeah,
So
I think that probably my biggest challenge is running out of cake pans sometimes. I've only got so many sets of so many sizes, and sometimes as soon as one's done, I'm flipping them out, letting them cool on wax paper or parchment paper so I can use those pans again. I think probably my biggest challenge and that I really need to hire somebody for is dishes. I think I need somebody. I mean, my husband's super good about doing them, but I feel like I need somebody sitting at the sink just doing dishes, doing dishes, doing dishes. And as soon as a whole stack of stuff is done, I'm using it again, So that's probably my biggest challenge.
when you said that, it totally triggered a memory of a goal as an artist. I went to school for illustration.
Oh, okay.
And so I also have a background in oil painting. And as an artist, you always hope that you can be so successful that you have a need to hire someone to clean your brushes and your palettes because it's the worst thing in the world. Well, I feel that way. Maybe somebody else doesn't, but it's very labor intensive and you'd rather be drawing or doing something else.
Or you're just sheer exhausted. I mean, there are times that sometimes, like this past weekend, I just looked at my husband and I said, I can't clean this kitchen right now. I was just so exhausted. He's like, I got it. I hadn't even showered, and he's like, just go take a shower.
Yeah.
And so I have to say, he's really good at that, but he also has his own job and he also travels, and sometimes he's not as willing to help me as he is other days. So I wish, I told him that the other day. I said, I wish I could have somebody that I could just hire somebody just to take the trash out, do my dishes, and mop and sweep my floor. That's it. He said, that's what our kids are for. I said, well, they're not too quick to do that either.
Well, I think if you can find somebody who is, like maybe somebody watches this interview and they've got a kid, like a high schooler or maybe even a college student who wants to do what you're doing. I mean,
Mhm.
what an awesome apprentice opportunity, where because you are an established business, especially from a college perspective, I wonder if there's a way that you can help give them quote like college credit.
That would be awesome. I would do that in a second. I actually have a little girl that's about 10 years old. Her mom's one of my good customers, and this little girl wants to come and shadow me so bad. And I was at a point where it was just it was during one of the holiday seasons when her mom, approached me to do that. And I know she was trying to offer me some help, but a 10-year-old's going to be more direction than it's going to be, helpful. So I told her, I said, wait till things slow down a little bit. And she's actually going to come. I'm going to do a back to school cake for them. And she's going to come and she's going to help me. And I'm going to let her do a lot. I'm going to let her do a lot of the cake. So I would love to be able to do that for a college student. I don't know what I would have to do as far as a university would consider, accredited so that they could get credit for it. But that's an awesome idea. I think I might have to look into that and see what I could do because I'd love that.
Yeah, college students are always looking for that beloved experience criteria because
Yeah.
Lord knows when you graduate, it's like you need 2 to 5 years minimum for the jobs that pay well. So, and everybody who's listening in that boat is going, amen.
Yeah.
But another thought would be, have you thought about doing like a summer camp for kids?
I actually when I lived in Pennsylvania, I did birthday parties for kids where they could come and they could do their own cupcakes. I usually baked the cupcakes ahead of time, and then they came and they had access to all my sprinkles, which I have a lot of sprinkles, different frosting colors and piping bags, and they got to do their whole, the whole thing. I kind of had thought about doing that before COVID hit. And now it's just, now I feel like we're kind of coming out of things to the point where I can kind of think about doing that again. We've got in the neighborhood that I live in, I would totally rent out the clubhouse or see if I could use it for a couple hours to do, like a summer camp for kids. I would have a blast doing that. I don't know how much kids would, but I would love it. I would absolutely love it. So I think that's a good question and something good to think about, especially now that we're kind of getting back to, some normalcy.
Well, and I think there's just so many, I think, kids who are wanting to have a creative outlet.
Hmm.
And if you can help foster entrepreneurship within that,
Yeah.
helping kids kind of understand how do I like almost like a starting your own bake shop for
Yeah.
a kid, like instead of the typical lemonade stand, okay, what's the cost of the materials? How do you price this? I mean, obviously, like depending on the age, it may not make sense, but that could be a really neat thing because I haven't heard of anybody doing something like
No,
that.
and if it even sparks, some child to decide that that's what they wanted to go into, or something like that, I would love that. I'd love to be able to cultivate, little creative minds.
I think as business owners, we get to a point where um, you're trying to grow your business, become established, and then it's less about making income goals or expanding, and it becomes more about how can you build a legacy and significance, and where's that satisfaction coming from? And I think a lot of times that's where teaching tends to come in or
Mhm.
coaching. So
I think that's right. That's point on right there. Yeah.
So is there anything, we've talked about quite a bit, your business and what all you provide. Where are you based out of, and do you have any locations that you really don't serve within Indianapolis?
Um, no, I'm in Zionsville. And so I've got customers that come, I don't typically deliver because I'm a one-man show. I don't really have time. I will deliver during the week, if somebody, because I'm much slower during the week. The weekends, there's just no way. And I haven't quite gotten to a point where I can hire somebody to deliver for me. Now, both of my daughters, their boyfriends, have delivered for me a couple times. But, you know, they're 18, 19 years old, and they don't really want to deliver cupcakes all day long. So I'm not I do deliver wedding cakes always. I always do that. For one thing, I usually set up a wedding cake there on site. Um, because it's just, I don't want to transport a 3 or 4 tier cake. I would rather make my cakes, get them decorated. And a lot of times I do a lot with fresh flowers. So a lot of times, you know, the brides will have their florist leave flowers that match their table settings or their bouquets, you know, stuff like that. So I usually do that there. But I've got customers that come from Noblesville, Indianapolis, Fishers, Westfield, Carmel, of course, Zionsville and Whitestown. I would say was probably my core group of customers. But pretty much this whole, I've got a lady in Lafayette that comes. Um, so pretty much this nice area right around Indianapolis is pretty much my core.
Well, that makes a lot of sense too, if you're able to work out delivery or um, handle that. And so, in wrapping this up, because I feel like we could just keep talking about baking because there's so much involved. Is there anything that you would like to leave our audience with in terms of how to get connected with you, or if they'd like to place an order, what's the best way to do that?
Most of my customers, they message me through Facebook Messenger, or Instagram even, but you can always go to my email, shoot me an email, or even text me. I don't even mind people that call or text. I have a 570 area code, so that's a Pennsylvania phone number. So I don't mind if people, you know, text me at all. I get a lot of people that'll say, hey, I'm so and so's neighbor, or, you know, I saw your business card somewhere, or whatever. That's totally fine. But I would say probably 90% of my customers reach me through Facebook Messenger or through my business page on Facebook.
Okay. Do you have a preference out of everything that you've listed?
I'd say probably Facebook, through Facebook. Just because then I usually have a run of our conversation, pictures of whatever somebody's interested in, or ideas, where I have a bad tendency of not saving phone numbers, and then I'll accidentally delete them, you know, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta try to, what was that girl's name? Or, you know, so I'm really bad about not paying attention to as I'm swiping and deleting text messages. So I would definitely say by Facebook or email is probably the best way.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to share
Uh,
or
no, I
leave?
don't think so. If anybody wants to check me out, I'm on, like I said, I'm on Facebook, my business page, and my personal page is not really a personal page. It's pretty much, I mean, I don't put too much personal stuff on there. Every once in a while, you might see something of my kids. But pretty much if I post something on my business page, a cake, or, you know, if I'm running a special, I also post it on my personal page, because I do have a lot of customers that only follow my personal page, but some that only follow my business page. And then my Instagram's under my business as well.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And for those watching, all of her information will be available either in the description or in the comments. So be sure to check that out. Do her a favor too and go like her Facebook page.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
One of the best ways you can support a small business, if you don't have a need currently to do business with them, is to support them on social media. And what that looks like is liking a page, interacting with what they post. So not only liking the post, but commenting. And then that share button is beautiful, because what that does is it triggers the social media algorithm to say, hey, this is great content. We need to share this with more people. And if you're not familiar with how social media pages work, especially particular to Facebook, anytime a business organically posts, it only reaches like 10% of the people that follow. So if you follow a page and you love what they do, one of the best ways to support them is to share their content. So Keisha didn't ask me to do that, but it's a little bit of an intro. If you are passionate about supporting local small businesses, that's a really great way to help support them. And then what's your Instagram handle as well?
I gotta look.
Oh, okay. I'll have it in the description, but it's also nice for.
So the name of my business is Lil, L-I-L. So it's Lil Bites Confections. And I think that's exactly what it is under my Instagram. Gosh, I don't even know. It is. It's Lil Bites Confections LLC.
Cool beans. Well, thank you, Keisha.
Thank
Goodness,
you.
thank you, Keisha, for doing this interview. I hope everyone found it to be valuable, and definitely check her out for all of your dessert needs.
Yep. Thank you so much for having me, Jessica. It was so nice to talk to everyone.
You bet.
Okay, have a great day, guys.